Hey everybody, and welcome to today's stream where our subject is the traditional Japanese Maneki Neko cat, where we're going to fold a lovely model by Oriol Esteve, his lucky cat. How's everybody doing today? I see that we've already got at least 30 people over here on Crowdcast and about at least a half a dozen over here on Facebook. Glad you could join us today here for our second stream of 2021. And I just want to say hi to Lawrence and Kay and Hisako over on Facebook. I want to say hi to everybody, Elsa, Debbie, Sonia, Florence, Ellen, Bridget. Welcome. So glad that you could join us. I know there's others here. Talo, I know Talo's here. I just want to say hi to Sarah, who I've already said hi to today. We've been working, getting today's stream ready. Sarah Williams. Sarah is running the chat over on Crowdcast. And it's just really nice to see you all here today. So let's get into the Maneki Neko, the lucky cat. Now, you see this image behind me. This is a photograph that was taken at the Gotokuji Temple in Old Tokyo, which is that's the temple that's known for the Maneki Neko cat. I did some research. I was looking up some of the different backstories behind the Maneki Neko. I actually found three totally different origin stories for the lucky cat. And I thought I'd share at least a couple of those with you today. But the Maneki Neko, literally, it means beckoning cat. Now, the position of the paw, evidently I think in other cultures, like in Asian, different from Western cultures, the beckoning is kind of done like this, opposed to this. Like here in the West, we beckon this way, but the Maneki Neko, it shows a beckoning cat because they beckon in a different fashion. One of the stories. Oh, yeah, and this, I said this already, the pictures from the Gotokuji, I hope I'm saying that right, Gotokuji Temple, a Buddhist temple in Old Tokyo. And so here's one of the stories. This one's from Wikipedia, so you can go look this up yourself. There are many legends about the birth of the Maneki Neko, of which the most popular is the legend of the Gotokuji Temple. I'm probably getting that wrong. I really should figure that out. In the 17th century, a poor monk lived in the small Zen temple in Setagaya, Tokyo. And although his life was very difficult, he shared his own meager meals with his pet cat, which strayed into the temple. One day, a lord samurai, Lee Naotaka of the Hikone domain district, was on his way to hunt when suddenly a storm came and he had to seek safety under a big tree near the temple. Sheltering there, he noticed the cat, raising one paw as if waving him to the temple, beckoning him. Curious, he left his cover and headed for the temple to have a better look at the strange cat. As he did so, a lightning bolt destroyed the tree beneath which he had just been standing. So the cat saves his life. Naotaka was so grateful he became the patron of the temple, repaired it to become more spacious, and when the cat died, he was buried in a special graveyard for cats. A pet cemetery, if you will. Anyway, in the temple, a statue of Maneki Neko was made to commemorate this special cat and has been revered ever since. So that was one story. Here's another one. This is a much shorter story. I like this one too. This has like a great sort of quick little arc and moral of the story. Another folk tale. Of course, there's so much amazing Japanese folklore. And I've had a lot of fun kind of starting to dig into it. an operator of an impoverished shop or an inn or a tavern or temple, what have you, took in a starving stray cat despite barely having enough to feed himself. In gratitude, the cat sat in front of the store, beckoning customers, thus bringing prosperity as a reward to the charitable proprietor. Ever after, the beckoning cat has been a symbol of good luck for small business owners. So you'll see the Maneki Neko in a lot of different types of shops. So there's also some symbolism here too with the use of color. Now most commonly you see the Maneki Neko in white with the red belly. I'm going to show you here. So we're going to look at Oriol. So the model that we're going to fold today. Oh wait, here. Sorry. There we go. The model we are going to fold today appears in both of Oriol's books. Actually, it was in Stop Thinking, Start Folding, and then he has a slightly revised version in his brand new book, Fold with the Flow. And one of the nice things that appears in the new Fold with the Flow book is one of my good friends, Adrian Sack, who many of you know, did some really cool little cartoon drawings here. And here we've got a representation of some of the different colors and the significance of each of those. And I'm trying to do this so I can zoom in. Here we go. Whoa. OK, cool. So we can see here, so we got the traditional one symbolizing good fortune, good luck. The black one for warding off evil. We've got the pink for love, green for luck and education. We've got blue for longevity. And the all red one here wards off illness. The gold one, of course, symbol of wealth, or symbol of wealth. And the which arm is beckoning also has some symbolic significance. So I guess it's the right paw invites to enter or beckons. If you switch paws to the left paw, it could be significant for inviting money and good fortune. And then why not? Just put both paws in the air and just have it all. Why not? So cool. So that's just a little bit about the significance and these really, really cute drawings. I just love. Adrian's been doing some really cool work. She worked with Oriol and Nicholas Terry on that book. I'm starting to work with Adrian. We've got some. You're going to see like a new piece of artwork by Adrian here in just a minute when we talk about the next live stream. But we're not there yet. But today we are going to fold this super cute, super awesome model. Once again, Oriol Esteve hitting it out of the park with these really clever and cute origami models. And this one also, I mean, if you balance it just right, if you get the base just right, you can get it to stand up like so. All right, and I think I've said everything that oh no, actually, I wanted to share with you before we start folding. I actually have an actual Maneki Neko paper mache sculpture that is Japanese that I borrowed from my dear friend Charles Mayer. Charles is a collector of many things. He's collected a lot of Japanese artifacts, items over the years. And in the next live stream, you're going to get to see a little glimpse into one of his collections, also related to Japanese folklore and Japanese tradition. But this was the one Maneki Neko piece that I borrowed from him for this. So let's start folding. Now, I'm going to use a 24 centimeter sheet for the lesson today. We're going to start with the colored side up. I don't really, I mean, you could go smaller, like 20 centimeters, which is about 8 inches. I mean, you could go a little bit smaller than that too, but I think that it's a good idea to use slightly larger paper. In fact, like this big one that you see here, I folded this out of 14-inch, which is 35 centimeters, duo kami that I happen to have laying around. And this little one was folded from a 20 centimeter or 8-inch sheet. So you can see it does shrink down quite a fair amount. All right, so here, let me put this up here. And I'm just going to, I want to say hi to Leslie and Don and Angela. Good to see you again. These are all my, my loyal fans on Facebook. And then I'm just so stoked to see so many people still joining us here on Crowdcast. Got 37 people online right now. Brent, good to see you again. Julianne. All right. I could be here all day saying hi to you folks. So let's get to folding. Now I have here some sweet diagram images that Sarah. So these diagram images that we're using here today, they're actually directly from Nicholas Terry created them initially, and he so graciously has loaned them to us to use, and we did some modifications on the slides to make them a little bit better, easier to read here on the live stream. So I'm gonna be kind of playing around with this. Now, if you watched the previous live stream, you might remember I was jumping between big and small images. Well, I'm not gonna do any of that. I decided that was just too clunky and just not a very good idea, too confusing. So we're just gonna use the one, but I'm gonna keep it like kind of large, but I'm gonna probably be adjusting the size a lot, just for space. And you know, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry to get this issue. I'll go ahead, I'll put the little one up there. Okay, cool. All right, so if you couldn't tell already, first step, we're gonna start with the colored side facing up, and we're gonna fold both of the diagonals one at a time. So starting with the bottom corner, folding up. Again, I'm using 24 centimeter paper, which is, it's more than 8 inches. Let's see here. I'm gonna use my cutting mat. Oh, right, yeah, duh. It's like 9.5. Technically, I think it's 9.4 inches, but yes. So this is a 9.5 inch square. Okay, I've just folded one of my diagonals, and I'm gonna fold the other one. So good to see everyone. There we go. Okay, so we unfold after folding each of the diagonals, and we'll go into the next step here. Now, I want you to pretend like you were folding a kite base, but we're only going to make pinch marks up at the top of where those kite flaps, as I like to call them, would occur. So I'm going to start here with this bottom right edge, and so you will pretend like you're going to make a kite flap. Now, if you don't know what a kite flap is, what that means is that we're creating an angle bisector between this bottom edge here and the center crease. But we're not going to make a crease all the way down the paper, but we're just going to line everything up as if we are going to make a kite flap, but we're only going to make a pinch mark at the top end. We'll call it the top end here. So that was one, and then we do the exact same thing on the opposite side, and I like to kind of get that whole, as much of that edge lined up there as you can, but really once you get a pretty good portion of this edge sitting on that center crease, it is basically the paper is where it's supposed to be sitting in order to get the correct placement of this pinch mark. Okay, so I've made pinch marks here at the top of the would-be kite flaps. All right. Now we're going to take the paper, flip it over to the white side, and now we're going to create a valley crease that connects those two pinch marks, and we want it to connect right at the edge of where the pinch touches the edge of the paper. But instead of folding this down like so, I'm gonna spin the paper around so that I can approach that by folding up and away from myself. So I have more control over the paper. And we are making a crease that goes all the way across. And I start by kind of rolling the paper into place to hit those pinch marks. And then you can also kind of keep an eye on this corner. Mathematically speaking, that should also be landing right in the center, but you never know. Maybe there's slight imperfections. It might sit a little bit to one side or the other, which is just only natural. And I'm looking here, and yeah, I did okay on those. Actually, I should have trusted that point. If I had made that point line up like I said it should, I think I would have hit the endpoints really nicely. So anyway, okay, so here we are. So we have just folded the flap down, connecting those two pinch marks. And then now, I love this next series of steps because we're going to make something that ends up looking a lot like an envelope that you would mail something in. So we're going to bring these side corners in so that this edge meets this edge. So in other words, we are bisecting this angle up here. We have a right angle. So for these, again, I'm going to spin the the paper around so that I can approach it this way. And I'm just going to kind of roll the flap in so that I know it's sitting right up on the edge of this other flap. And what's also happening is the point of that flap is landing along the crease that runs through the middle of the paper. And we do that on both sides. So do this, and then I'm going to do the other side. I like rolling that flap into place knowing that I'm not overlapping or overtaking this first flap. And you can just see those edges just coming right up to each other. And if it's lined up all the way, you know that crease is coming right to the point. Very nice. Okay, now it starts to look like the Gmail logo, or at least the way it used to look. I don't know. They're always changing it. But now we're going to close the envelope, so to speak. And so this time the diagram does show the model flipped around like this. And now we're going to take this bottom flap, and this is so cool how this looks. You bring that up, and the edges of this flap will come to meet the edges on the two previously folded flaps. Oop. There we go. And you know what? Because I want to be careful with the paper, I'm going to open these flaps up just for sharpening this crease, so I know I'm not going to like snag the edge of one like I kind of almost just did. But okay, so now we've got our little envelope. Although technically, I mean, if you wanted a real envelope, you would want these edges to overlap. But anyway, all right, so now that we've folded those four corners in such a way, we're going to open up the whole model back to the white side and then flip it back over. And I want you to orient the paper just like we had it before, imagining the kite flaps, and the pinch marks for my kite flaps are right up here. And notice, we've got a mountain crease down here already in the paper, and then we've got an existing valley crease. And what we're going to do here, we're going to actually create a mountain crease that sits right in between those two lines that runs parallel. So here's a way that we can do that. If you just re-engage the very first fold where we folded it in half, like this. Now, this valley crease, this is the mountain crease that I pointed out before from the other side here. What you're going to do, you're just going to take that corner and you're going to kind of pull it down. And you're going to pull it down until that mountain crease, we're looking at the mountain crease again. You want to align that with the edge, with that edge that sits just underneath it on the edge of the paper here. So I'm going to roll that into place on each side until I'm happy with it. And now I can make my crease. So just using those existing creases in the paper. And again, what I did, I flipped up, I just folded it in half, and I used the existing crease up here from the previous step, and I brought it down so that that crease sat right on top of this edge right here. And there we are. Okay, so now, next step. Notice the pinch marks. And here, what I'm going to do with this slide, I'm going to make this a little bit bigger for a second here. So we're going to use the pinch marks that we made once again. It's also where this horizontal crease is also shares the endpoints with those pinch marks. What we want to do is create two valley creases that run parallel to these edges. So another way to think of that is that we're going to take the tip and we're going to bring it to meet the little intersection of creases with the pinch mark. So here's how I'm going to actually fold that, because I don't like to fold down usually, not always. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take the paper, I'm going to spin it around about like so. So here's the tip, here's the top tip down here. Here's my pinch mark. Actually, I'm gonna put it like this. This is a much better way to do it, because what I'm doing now what I'm doing, I'm taking that edge that I mentioned before, and I'm bringing it up, and I'm bringing this point to the pinch marks, or the intersection with the pinch mark, and I'm making sure to keep this edge aligned with itself, because we're going for we're aligning parallel / perpendicularly. Perpendicularly, is that a word? Parallelly? Making a adverb out of a, anyway. Then we open that up, so that's the first one, and now we'll do the other one, so I'll just spin it like so that I can take, this point here, this is the top of the model according to the diagram, what I'm pointing to. So we're bringing that over to the pinch mark, and that will cross the previous crease that we just made. And some of you might see where this is going, because we've just put creases in the paper that mimic a preliminary fold. However, we need to make a couple of creases from the other side before we collapse into this preliminary fold. But yes, this is where we are going with this. But we're going to make a couple extra creases. Here we go. So now I want you to flip the model over to the light side, and we've got here, so here's, I've got the paper oriented like it is in the diagram. Here's the top. So we've got those two creases that we just made. Those are now mounting creases on this side of the paper. And for the next step, there's a right angle right here that we're going to bisect. Now I'm going to give you a little tip. They don't tell you this in the book. Here's a pro tip. So we can actually use each of those creases that we just made. For example, so here's one of the ones that we just did. I'm going to go ahead and re-engage that crease. So now, when you're looking up here at the diagram that I'm pointing to, that point that I'm pointing to right here is now at the top of this. And so that makes it a little bit easier to make a really nice, perfect crease that goes right to the point at the top here. So you take this whole flap and you send it over to the side, but I'm gonna kind of rotate it just so that I can fold it a little bit better. But by engaging this flap behind it, instead of folding to a crease line, we're actually folding to an edge. And that prevents us from folding past that point, where then the paper could, it wouldn't be happy, and you risk kind of ripping the paper. So by engaging that previous step, it helps you do a really nice angle bisector here. I'm on the right. I'm doing the one on the right here. One thing to watch out for is that this pleat we've got a few extra layers built up, you might have to contend with the extra layers a little bit, kind of smooth them out. They might want to kind of shift around a little bit on you. But, okay, so I'm going to unfold this right side and then out the left side. So here I am. So now I want to do the same thing over here so I can engage the other flap from the previous set of steps, this mountain crease right here. We can just go ahead and fold that down. Hi, Laura from Uruguay. Good to see you. Thanks for the compliment. So I'm going to do this other side. Here's the point that I'm going to bisect. I'm going to kind of approach it a little bit from the side, really kind of smooth out those inner layers, those extra layers. I'm going to roll that bisector into place. Okay, so we unfold back to here, and so now I have created those two what are marked as yellow creases, yellow valley creases in the diagram. Okay. Okay. Now we flip it back over. So here we are, and now we do our little preliminary base collapse. So this will likely be familiar to you, but it might help to kind of like just quickly refold those two flaps that we did before. And now if you do them both at the same time, you should get this preliminary base form. Look at that, it already looks like a cat. Kind of. I don't know, it's funny, I feel like it looks more like an upside down cat than it does when you flip it up the other way. Anyway, whatever. Okay. Okay, cool. So now we are going to make a pre-crease. Now, in the diagram, which I will enlarge just a little bit. Okay, so there is a, so here we've got, this is actually an imaginary line going through kind of where my finger's pointing. Oh, I know what I can do. I love the Apple Pencil as a pointer. So I'm going to point here. That line right there is not actually in the paper. I want you to imagine the line that connects these two corners, and we're going to fold the tip to meet this imaginary line, which is essentially the center of, well, is the center of this square flap. I'm going to flip it upside down so I can kind of fold it up, because that's just how I like to fold. And this is, you know, the exact placement of this is inconsequential. It doesn't actually matter. If it's a little, you know, if it's like a little off, it's okay. Okay, so I'm going to give you a spoiler here. Spoilers, this is a pre-crease for a open sink, which means that when we make this pre-crease, we want to make sure we have a nice sharp crease. Now, we don't have to get too crazy with it because it's only like 4 layers of paper, right? Yeah, maybe. But we will unfold now so that we can perform an open sink. And open sinks are one of my all-time favorite origami maneuvers. And one thing I love about open sinks is that you get to open the paper, so it's a lot easier to do. I do have to say, I've been getting a lot more comfortable, a lot better at doing closed sinks in recent years. Closed sinks used to be the bane of my existence. But anyway, we don't have to do any closed sinks today. We don't need to talk about that. So I'm going to unfold my pre-crease first. And then I'm going to actually kind of pull open that whole preliminary collapse that we did before. Go ahead and open it up. And if you look here on the white side of the paper, that pre-crease has created this nifty square at the top. I realize a lot of you, this is a walk in the park, but if you want a little bit of guidance on doing this open sink, which means that we want the tip that's at the top here, the diagram, to get sunk down into the model, here's an easy way to walk through it. So we've got this square. Our goal through this process is to reverse some of the creases that trace this square so that they are all mountain creases. Now some of these are already mountain creases. So on account of the pre-crease, this back one is already a mountain. Okay. Conversely, the one that's opposite to it is a valley. So we can go ahead and go in here, and you have to kind of flatten out the paper a little bit, but see if you can kind of pinch, reverse that crease so it goes from a valley to a mountain fold. Okay. Now the ones on the side, half is already a mountain, but the other half is a valley. So just kind of go in and focus on the half, and in this case, it's the back one here. You can do a little reverse there, and it doesn't take much, just a little push of the paper. Okay, so then you start to get this, it's almost like a plateau. And so what we want to do now is to kind of like get the preliminary base to start to recollapse. So if you go here and you kind of we pretend like we're closing it, now we've still got this sort of flat little plateau going on, and maybe you kind of pinch corners a little bit. And you can quite literally sink that tip by pushing it inward, down, and what will also happen is that you will, of course I'm like looking at the screen while I'm doing this, so I'm not doing it as well as I could be doing it, but you want that point to eventually go as far down as the paper will allow, and then we collapse. And so we're back to where we were before, but the tip that was up here is now sunk inside the model. Oh yeah. Okay. Cool beans. For this next step, we're gonna swing some of the layers around. But I want you to notice that we've got there's a mountain crease line here along the bottom. So what that means is that we're gonna kind of rearrange the flaps. We're gonna do some stuff to one side, and then we're gonna do the exact same thing to the opposite side. So if we engage that mountain crease without actually folding through this becomes the head. You will engage this mountain crease. So you swing this flap behind into the right if you're still facing it this way. But then this little thing, it looks like the Superman logo, or it looks like a diamond. We're going to swing it back like so. So now that sort of head is facing back, and you end up here. Before I show that, I'm just going to show you. So that's what it looks like. We took that flap on the side, and as we swung it, we let the head kind of swing with it without putting a new crease through the head. Cool. Kathy, glad you liked that open sync explanation. I like it too. I realize a lot of you you've done open syncs in your sleep, so well, maybe. Wouldn't that be funny? Okay. Cool. So now this next step in the diagram, we showed you the resulting part. I think it's really helpful because back when I was first figuring this out, I got kind of tripped up here. First of all, we already have this existing valley crease that runs across horizontally here. One thing I want to point out, and let's see if I can do this here. Okay, yeah. So if you look at the diagram here, you see that blue mountain crease line. It ends right here. Okay? So this point that I'm pointing to on the paper, this point becomes the top tip of the result here that you see right here. Okay? So again, this point, the end of this mountain crease, you see that kind of triangle shape? If you just kind of rotate it a quarter turn, you can kind of see how it becomes the tip up here. And so here's what it actually looks like. You're going inside here, and this is a squash fold, I guess, or a swivel. I don't know. This is a squash fold. You engage this hinge. Now inside, there's this pleat still. Go ahead and go all the way underneath all the layers of the pleat. So you're kind of going in here into this pocket. This point here, as a matter of fact, the point that becomes the tip top, this is our kite flap pinch from before. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go in, I'm going to engage the hinge while I'm kind of pushing from the side. The other thing that's going to happen, so you see this raw edge, that this is going to align with itself in the end result. So this comes up, we go in the pocket, we pinch it down, and there's it'll naturally fall. If you go all the way back into that pocket, it'll naturally fall here. And then as we start to collapse it and flatten it, now we can pay attention to these raw edges up here and get those lined up. And yeah, Talo, I like that. I guess it's a swivel squash. And once you've got that collapsed, then you will also finish here. Oh yeah. Okay. Everybody get that one? We're going to do it again from the other side, but I guess probably better to make sure you got the first one before we try to do the second one. So there is a little bit of a delay from what you see and what I'm doing, so I'm just going to chill for a second. I'm going to take a sip of water. Delicious water. Okay. So, all right, here we go. Next step. Next step is easy. We just use the existing crease to swing this flap over. And then now we're going to swing the layers from behind back to the front. Oops. So when you do that, you end up with this very strange looking fish. All right, here we go. Now we repeat. So what we've done, we've actually broken these out. We've made a mirror image here. So, oh, actually, you know what? I think, you know what? Sorry. We didn't quite get it. So, well, actually, sorry. Let's see here. So, here for a second here, just look at what I've got here. Okay, okay, so here's where we were. We're after doing the one side. We now want to take the flap on the right, swing that behind. Here's the head, and we flip it around like so. And let's see here. Is this what we've got here? Okay, sorry. You know what? This isn't quite right. So we'll just do it without the diagram for a second. That was my bad. Okay, cool. So we've just swung everything over. We've got the hinge. You're going to get all the way underneath, under the pleat here. You're going to engage that hinge. And this point right here is going to end up way up here. So we go underneath. So we're kind of going underneath, and then we're kind of pushing from the side. And then that is what brings this raw edge over to align with itself over here. And then we swing this back over this way. Okay, Brent says ask for a repeat. So here. Oh, one thing I want to point out. So when you get to this step where you swing this over like so, sometimes I need to kind of adjust that crease to make sure that it's cleanly hitting this corner. I think with the the layering of the paper and the subsequent paper creep, sometimes you might have to kind of adjust this crease. So you do want to try to make sure that when you swing that flap back over, that it goes right up to the top. And then when you unfold it, when you swing everything back, you end up back here. And Brent, I will repeat. I lost a few people there. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to go back and I'm trying to think what I have to do to put the paper back to where it was. It's funny how it's like hard to unfold it and put it back. Okay, I'm going to go through those steps once again. And I'm going to where's my, there it is. Okay. So I'm going to go back here to step 13. So first we have to rearrange the layers. And we've got the mountain crease that goes down, and you want to take the left hand side of this flap and you want to swing it over to the back, and then this part, this kind of diamond shape, will also swing to the back. Which brings you to what you see here, number 14. Now for this next step, we're going to do a swivel squash. And first, I just want to point out that you've got a pocket here, so you can kind of put your hand underneath this flap, and you want to go all the way underneath. There's a little pleat here. You want to make sure you're going underneath the pleat here. Okay. And there is already this valley crease here that we are going to engage by swinging this up. So it's like we're in the pocket, we're swinging this flap up, and the new crease that we're going to put on the paper is this mountain crease that you see in blue that runs out the diagonal. Now it's already in the paper here, because obviously I've already done it, but this is where that crease is forming. And so if you get underneath here and kind of engage that hinge, now what you're going to do, we've got this long raw edge. This long raw edge will line up with itself. So if I push this up and start to squash it down, you can align things so that those edges will now start to line up here. You are also, I believe you are making a new crease also right down here when everything starts to squash flat. And then from there, you swing this flap to one side, to the other side, from here to here. And then now you swing all of the layers back around. So maybe just make sure I don't lose you here. The layer from behind swings around. The one to the right. This is a minor miracle, right? Is this what a minor miracle is? And I realize that 17, our diagram, we're missing a line here, but that's okay. So then, if you to do it to the other side, you're going to swing everything around like so. Here's what that's going to look like. And, then, oops, sorry, here we go. Okay, so we're going to do that step again where we've got the hinge right here. And then we've got a valley crease, and then we get into the pocket underneath that hinge, using that hinge. And then as we push that paper up, this raw edge of this flap right here is going to come over and line up with itself, and then you have a point that kind of sticks out a little bit more to the side. We finish by making our new crease here. And then this tip, we swing back to this side. And when we do that, you might have to readjust the crease a little bit. But then here we will swing the flaps back around like so. And this is what we end up with. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. And I'm also going to bring the diagram back. Oh. Okay. Here we are. We're back. We're going to focus on the ears right now. I think that the color change in this model is absolutely brilliant. The color change in the ears, specifically is what I mean, is brilliant in this model. So we're going to do a couple of squash folds. And when we get inside here, yeah, it totally looks like a cow. When we get inside here, we want to make sure that we're getting inside where the color change happens, because you could peel back an additional layer and then it's all still, like in this case, it's all still white. So when you reach into this little pocket here, form the tip where this ear is going to happen, make sure you get inside underneath the colored layer. And we're going to make a squash fold like so. If you kind of like bring that in, you can bring that existing crease to sit horizontally. The tip will come all the way out to this point right here. Like that. And then we're going to do the same thing, obviously, on the other ear. We're going to get inside the ear, kind of get inside, do a little squash fold, bringing that down and bring that point. Everything will just line right up, like so. And now here's where the color change happens. We're going to make we're going to take these tips and we're going to fold them over, but we're not going to fold them all the way to the opposite point. Because if we leave a little bit of a gap, you see here, if I'm going to roll that point to the inside, and I'm not going to go all the way, because look, I get that color change right there. Do the same thing over here. Now what we can do is the bottom corners of those two flaps, we can pull the layer underneath it. There's a little layer we can pull open, and we can tuck both of those inside. This is the sink fold, actually. You're tucking them inside there. And now the ears have begun to take shape. There's still a little bit more that will help shape the ears and that will create the other white edge. We don't have the white edge over here just yet, but we will. All right, you know what? Give me a second here. I just feel like I'm really bright and blown out here in the shot. Okay, next step. So if you'll notice behind the head, there's a corner here where a color change happens. That is a good reference as a landmark for the next two steps. And the end result that we're going for is a mountain fold that connects the tip and that landmark I just pointed out. When I do this step, I actually like to fold these as valley folds and then reverse them. That's just kind kind of a personal preference. But I feel like it's a lot more accurate for me to like make a valley fold and then reverse it than it is to try to like perfectly like roll that paper under there and get a mountain fold that goes right to the tip like I want it to. So I'm gonna go ahead and do these pre-creases. This isn't how it's diagrammed. I'm just gonna do it this way, because then I can also really easily see the landmark, this little color change back here. Oop, let me get my mouse out of the way. Haha, cat and mouse. I'm so easily amused. Jeez. What is up with this lighting? The other problem is that like it's pretty overcast today, and at times the sun peeks out and then it changes and I have to adjust, and then okay. So that's one of my pre-creases. I'll just go ahead and do the other one. And you don't have to do the pre-creases. You could just go for it. Just put them in as mountain creases. But here, this gives me I can do like a nice clean crease like so. And it's really not too hard to go in and reverse the layers. In fact, you've got really just one single layer through most of this flap. The only part that you have to kind of contend with is where you have multiple layers on this opposite end. But if you're careful, you can pretty easily reverse that crease, tuck that underneath, clean. Easy. Okay, next step. We're going to take the tip. We're working on the face now. We're going to be intensely focused on the face for a few steps here. That bottom point, we can swing that up as far as the paper will allow. There's a natural stopping point under here. So don't worry so much about the landmark that you see in the diagram above, but you're just folding that up about as far as it will go, or as far as it will go. And we unfold. Now we fold the tip to meet the crease that we just made. So I guess in the end, the tip here gets hidden. I forgot that. So we fold that, and then we're going to go ahead and roll the flap all the way up, like so. Now we're going to make the nose and the muzzle, which is a little bit tricky. And this is one of the major revisions that Oriol made to this model. Okay, so you could do this a few different ways, but we're gonna follow the procedure that he laid out in the most recent version in Fold with the Flow. So make a valley crease that connects the point at the corner here and then this point up here. And you're kind of making the angle bisector, but don't really focus so much on the angle bisector, just focus on connecting the corners with the valley crease. Okay, and so now what you're going to do, we're going to take the other edge. So we're going to kind of like do something on one edge here, and then we're going to kind of mimic it, but while this on the other side, but while this flap is folded. So in a way, you're kind of bisecting. You're bringing this down, like so. And so the crease actually connects with the corner to the point there in the middle. Okay, so we're just starting out here. Now we unfold both of those. And now we're going to do it from the other side. We're going to come in like this. And you see this little edge right here. Or wait, actually, before we talk about the edge, go ahead. We're going to put that crease in. We're going to do like we did with the other side. Oop. The point underneath is starting to become undone. So, sorry, get back to the diagram. So we just did that. So now we're going to come down from the other side. And there's a way, if you kind of keep doing this at the same time, what's going to end up happening is you're gonna collapse this in a way where this flap that's on the inside is going to kind of end up underneath it. Okay, so I've gone one side, I've done the other side, and as I start to collapse, you kind of see how that flap on the inside kind of goes in. You can kind of squash that inside there. And I feel like I'm still not even like doing it the way it's supposed to go, but you see here, if you just kind of do them both about the same time, you get a nice little muzzle shape. And you can kind of squash that, kind of shape that a little bit. You could also like really like you could kind of flatten the stuff here on the inside of the nose. You can kind of like roll it in underneath and kind of squash it and roll it in from the other side. And the main thing is that you want to kind of get this this kind of split. I think you can kind of play with the layers underneath and get that the way you want it. And that's a good question. Is it supposed to be 3D? It can be kind of 3D. It kind of depends. Sometimes I make them kind of flat. There's also a step later on where we're going to kind of puff the head out a little bit at the end. So I generally go for like kind of a flat face at this point. But yeah. So next step, we're going to make some mountain folds, and we've got some easy landmarks here. We've got this edge in the middle of the ear, and we've got a corner, and we're just going to connect those two. So this is easy. We just kind of roll the paper behind, connecting this corner to here. And this mountain crease is a lot easier to make because the paper just kind of knows where to go. So I've taken this side corner here of the face and folding it behind, connecting the landmark at the base of the ear to the lower corner of the face. Now we're going to do some more mountain folds where we're tucking these corners behind. And the paper's really thick right here. Something else I want to point out, some advice that Oriol gave me on the proportions of this, is that you can think of, so we've got this sloping edge here already. We can think of that as edge number 1. And then in the diagram that you see here, that blue mountain fold line, think of that as edge number 2. He said that proportionally, number 2, again, which is the blue line here in the diagram, that second leg can be as long as or shorter than number 1, which is the one that ends up here, but never longer. Never longer. It just kind of messes up the proportions of the face, and it no longer really looks cute. So I'm going to really kind of like grab that corner and get all those layers and try to tuck this underneath and make sure that the crease edge that I make is not any longer than proportionally than this part right here. And the mountain crease just kind of comes down, shape the head, and now of course the real challenge is trying to make the other side look the same as the first one. Especially with the paper being as thick as it is. There. Good enough. I like it. Okay, so that's the face. It's all kind of downhill from here in terms of, you know, we're going to be coasting downhill. I feel like that idiom, it confuses me. I'm not sure if I use it the right way. Because if you're going downhill, like things could be going downhill, like, but not in a good way. But I imagine, like, you know, coasting downhill on a bicycle. What's it supposed to be, folks? You tell me. Okay, now here, we need to make this bigger because we wanted to show you the end result here for this step. And here, I'll go ahead. I'll move this lucky kitty. So now this is where we continue to kind of like create the color change in the ear. And the two, it is a fat cat looking. It is fat cat looking. Talo, excuse me, please. Oh my gosh, I just burped. Sorry. Okay, so we've got these two flaps. These are the arms. And we're going to send them both straight down. So we're making a crease that connects with the tip of the ear up here. But actually, I go from, I don't go to the true tip of the ear. I go to where the color change, where the red, so it's the red tip. So yeah, we're coasting here. So we're going to take this edge of the arm, and the edge of the arm, if you see in the diagram, it ends up going straight down. So we're just kind of like rolling it down so that we end up with a vertical edge for the arm for both arms. And this is going behind the head, by the way. So take that, kind of roll it down, get it looking parallel. I think I realized that my camera angle is kind of funny right now, so I'm try to compensate for that. Okay, so again, I'm making the crease connect with the color change with the tip of the red ear. All right. Cool. We're still doing okay over here on Facebook. I haven't heard from anybody over in a little while on the FB. Wow, we've got almost 20 people on Facebook right now. And 37 in Crowdcast. Great to have you. All right. So now, here we go. Next step. So we've got some landmarks here. Now you can, let me move this to the side a little bit. So you see those white dotted lines at the bottom and the top. So those are landmarks. But notice that is a blue mountain crease line. So what that actually means in practice, what I'm going to do, I'm going to flip it over. And there's a edge right here. That's where the dotted line here, that's I guess right here. So we're just going to flip that bottom point up to meet that edge right in between the ears. Oh, Don, I'm sorry to hear your kitty looks unlucky. I bet if you practice it and did it a few more times, you would start to get the hang of it. Just like anything. Okay, so this is a fold and unfold. Okay, so that gives us the mountain crease that we are looking for here. Because you wouldn't just go, oh, you know, full, I don't know. Maybe somebody would, but okay. Now I'm going to leave this big so that you can see the landmarks. We've got the tips of the ears, and then we've got this corner where the color change happens. Those are the two endpoints for two valley creases. And these valley creases are going to happen underneath the arms. So we keep kind of making creases, and we're layering them underneath everything that's on top. So good, Don. Glad to hear you're still with me. So the tip, we've got the tip here in the corner. I'm going to do the one on the right first. I'm going to kind of roll that in from behind and kind of roll. I have a little bit of a hard time making this look clean. I always end up, I don't know, my corner over here, down below, almost every time I fold this, my corner is not very clean looking. But you end up pretty much hiding that in the end anyway, so no biggie. Okay, I just did the right side. I'm going to do the left one. Going to get underneath that arm, get it out of the way so you can grab that big chunk of layers here and roll that in. But roll it in so that the paper doesn't shift around too much. I think that's why, I think the paper shifting is why my corner doesn't. That one worked really nicely, I think, because I was gripping it better. Okay, we're almost done. Almost done. We get to do the arms now. Oh, wait, no, sorry. Spoke too soon. We got to do one more little shaping here of this lower part of the model. This fold is nice because we've got an easy landmark. Now you see here in the bubble right here, this is the back side of the paper. So you see on the back, there's this flap. This corner indicates our landmark, and it gives you a natural stopping point for the paper. The paper won't really want to go past that. So what you can do is take this side corner, swing it over, and it's going to land on the center line, and it will fold as far as that little landmark from behind will allow. And then we do the other side. Or the landmark is, so you're bringing that outside corner to the center crease line. And there's that. Now we're going to do the arms. So you decide which arm you want to be beckoning. And in this case, the cat's right arm, like if you were the cat, it's on the left side as you're looking at. This will be the beckoning arm. So the one that's not beckoning is the one that you do the step to, and we just simply create a mountain fold to shape that edge for the arm of the cat. So you bring this tip behind the model, and grabbing everything there, and I'm going to make it taper a little bit, so that the arm gets a little bit wider, just a little bit, not too much though. There, that looks good. Happy with that. Okay, now for the beckoning arm, first you're going to open up the flap. And once it's open, what we're going to do is a sort of rabbit ear collapse, but we're not going to we don't want our little rabbit ear. Now, a rabbit ear basically is a bisection, or you bisect like 3 different angles in sort of a triangle shape or delta shape. In this case, though, notice that those valley crease lines, they come from this point. We've already got the existing crease line from the way it was folded. Okay, so we're still going to use this one, and we're still going to well, actually, I don't know if that's really a bisector, but here's how this is going to go. If you let's start with the crease that kind of comes up from the bottom middle part here. So I'm going to start to kind of fold that up a little ways, and you can kind of estimate it too. If you can just go ahead and just kind of start to make a valley crease, but make sure it stops where it hits this existing crease. And then from here, you will see that it is possible to collapse this in a way. Now the other valley crease, I want you to notice how, like right here, like this paw, notice the the shape. Can you see the shape of the arm within this little valley crease line? Like you see like the way the other paw is shaped. You basically want to end up with the same paw shape. So as you engage this rabbit ear, and you can kind of adjust this as you go, because like based on like the placement of these creases, they can show up at different angles, and you want to kind of want to get the arm up a little bit higher than I have it here, I think. So you can kind of play with this a little bit, but you will end up re-engaging the crease from before. Now when this collapses, boy, this is not clean at all. I usually do a lot better at this stuff. Sorry. So maybe I need to play around a little bit with these angles, but I guess you could go ahead and kind of flatten. Well, I don't know. You want it to sit behind. It's really important that the paw sits behind the head. So as you kind of pull that up a little bit, this crease will come down and meet right here, and it will end up in this upward position where this new crease does not go all the way to that corner. Just kind of tightening everything up here, letting some of the creases shift around and adjust a little bit. But there it is. And then you can fold its little beckoning paw down using the corner that we have here, just at some angle. I'm gonna do mine a little bit to the side to kind of emphasize the beckoning. I usually do end up with a little bit of a color change here just from the paper creep. So what are you gonna do? Big deal. All right, now that's almost finished. We just have to make it stand, make the base, the stand. So we already have an existing mountain crease down here that we're just gonna re-engage. Okay, that's the first one. And when you re-engage it, you actually have to, you're folding through some new layers here. So the white part on mine. So that gives you the bottom edge, the bottom front edge. Now, this second mountain crease that we put in running parallel, just a little bit below the one we just engaged, I find that more often than not, I'll put this crease in and then I'll go back and I'll adjust it, because the goal is to try and get the thing to stand up on its own. And it's a little bit of a balancing act. And depending on where you place this mountain crease, it kind of has an effect on how it stands up. And everyone's is going to be a little different anyway. But generally speaking, and you see this in the diagram, if you aim like a little bit, just a little bit below where those 2 points meet, and you'll see it, that's where it is here in the diagram, that's usually like a pretty good place. But you want to make sure it stays centered. Okay, but if you flip it over, you can see what's going to happen here. We're going to eventually take the tip and we're going to tuck it into this pocket. So I love this diagram. It looks so cool. So I need to go ahead and kind of get that second mountain fold. And from the side, you can kind of see how it will start to stand up. We take that tip, slide it in the pocket, and let's see, are we a lucky cat? Well, I still think we're lucky. We might not be balanced, but you know what? Like I said before, maybe I need to go in and, like the angle that this sits at has a lot to do with it. You just have to kind of play around with it for a little bit. Generally speaking, it's probably, oh, there we go. It's good if it kind of like leans back, wants to lean back just a slight bit, but you can't lean back too far because it's pretty top heavy, this model. It's got all these layers up here in the head, but there it is. Oh yeah, so you can also get underneath the head. This is where you can kind of, you know, open the mouth up a little bit, or you can get underneath the head and make that a little bit more 3D. And you can also, it's also customary to just find these with a little coin, or you can, actually I don't know, it's customary, but in this case, I mean, it is customary to use these coins as like, you know, signifiers of like wishing for wealth or good luck or that kind of thing. But anyway, if you have a special coin, you can slide it right inside the pocket here. And that, my friends, is the super cute Maneki Neko Lucky Cat, the beckoning cat, designed by Oriol Esteve, which appears in his excellent new book, just came out not too long ago, Fold with the Flow. We still got a couple of copies on the shelf here at origamishop.us. We've got more on the way, but you can buy this digitally from the site. And one thing I'll add too, so like a lot of our Nicholas Terry digital books, I don't know if you knew this, but used to be we had to send out the PDF versions of the books manually after putting a watermark. We put our own watermark on it, just just because it's an ebook and we're trying to protect our stuff. But now we skip that, and you just get to download Fold with the Flow from your My Download section from the Origami Shop webpage as soon as you order it. The key is that we've got the file size down small enough so that it. Anyway, I didn't really plan to talk about this, so cool. Well, thank you for joining me today. I have an announcement for our next live stream. So we're gonna try something a little bit different. We're gonna continue in the same vein of Japanese folklore because the Lunar New Year is approaching. February 12th, Friday, February 12th is Lunar New Year. So in honor of that, we're going to have a live show on Friday, February 12th at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we're going to do something a little bit different here. I have gotten permission to teach a really cool model by Fumiaki Kawahata. And here, let me move. Maneki, sorry. Oh, I should have just done this. Sorry. There we go. Okay, yeah. So this is the Fumiaki Kawahata model that I'm going to teach in honor of the Lunar New Year because we have the year of the ox is coming up. And so I've gotten permission from Kawahata to teach this model. But don't you just love this little cartoon drawing? This image was created by my good buddy Adrian Sack. For us, we're going to start working with Adrian on a few little projects here. But we're going to do something a little different this time around. What's going to be different is that I'm not going to actually teach the buffalo, this buffalo model. It's a buffalo, but it's bovine, so I think it still counts. And I'll explain a little bit more why I selected that model when you see the instruction for it. But I'm going to actually pre-record the video instructions. We're going to release it the week of Lunar New Year before we do our live show, so that you will have already had a chance to fold them and give them to people or whatever you want to do with them. And at the live show, we are going to just delve into the zodiac, and we're going to talk about the significance of the year of the ox. We are going to look at some other nifty origami oxen out there that others have designed. We're going to highlight some of my favorite ones that we find out there. And we're also going to show you some more Japanese artifacts. I meant to have one like within arm's reach. It's just out of arm's reach, but it'll be a surprise. You're going to learn a little bit about Japanese traditions at their shrines, and it'll be fun. I think we're going to look at some cool stuff. So we're just going to have the live show where it's just going to be like talking about the zodiac and the origami itself. We're going to do a little feature on Kawahata as well. And we'll just leave the instruction to like a pre-recorded video that we'll put out there, and then you can watch whenever you want. So just trying something new. But thank you again for joining us here today at Fold Space Origami Studio. Thank you so much to Oriol Esteve, Nicholas Terry for letting us use his diagrams. Thank you, Sarah Williams, for helping me create the graphics for this, and Adrian Sack, who has just started creating some of the graphics for this. And she's the one, actually, Adrian is the one who told me about the temple, the Maneki Neko temple in Japan, in Old Tokyo. I didn't know it existed, and I suddenly saw all these photos online of like hundreds and hundreds of Maneki Nekos. So, all right, my friends, we'll see you next time. Thanks again, and don't be strangers. Get in touch if you want. I realize some of you have gotten in touch with me, and you still haven't heard back from me. So I owe you all some responses, and I apologize that I have not. But anyway, thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you for Lunar New Year. Bye.